The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, Tech Bites is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
Rob Grimes with Tech Bites. And I got to tell you, this is going to be one of those really special episodes that we do today, because normally it's just a conversation between people, and a lot of them are professionals in the industry, but I don't always have the opportunity to have a conversation with a friend I've known a long time. So I'd like to introduce and welcome to the conversation Ron DiNella, who is the Chief Financial Officer of Ascent Hospitality. And Ron, welcome.
Well, thanks, Rob. I feel the same way about you. We've known one another for probably more than 30 years and worked.
I was avoiding using a number.
Oh, you said no numbers, huh?
I didn't say no numbers. I was avoiding it.
We've and lots of different business opportunities that I've had over the years, and we've had that chance to work together a few times, and obviously our goals are aligned in this restaurant industry.
But now we're like ships that pass in the night, because we keep passing each other at different industry events. And the reason why I think this could be a different kind of conversation is a lot of people who are focused on technology don't necessarily get to talk to somebody who is a chief financial officer. Now, they may report to them, which happens a lot, but now I'm finding that sometimes the CTO or CIO is at the same level, as the financial officer, just, in this world, although I never see the chief financial officer reporting to the CTO or CIO. That I haven't seen yet. Need to think about that. But I think your perspective may be a little bit different. So why don't we start with this? Not everybody knows what Ascent Hospitality is. So why don't we talk about your background and about Ascent? So you started in...
Right. I started in Chicago at Morton's Steakhouse. We had one Morton's at the time in the 1980s. I stayed with Morton's on and off. I left twice, but I stayed for nearly 30 years, ultimately becoming the chief financial officer of the public company. We sold, and we had 80 restaurants in probably 7 different countries, all company owned. And we ended up selling Morton's in 2011. And so I finally left when we sold the company to Landry's, and I was on my own for a little bit, invested in some restaurants, opened some restaurants, and then got recruited. And I was down in Fort Lauderdale with a brand called Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza, which is very near and dear to my heart. They did a great job. I was there for a few years, and then I got recruited to my current role, which is Ascent Hospitality Management. And Ascent is a holding company. We own and operate 2 family dining brands, full service. Perkins, which is probably more well-known and more spread out throughout the country, and a place called Huddle House. Both brands are about 65 years old. Huddle House is more of a diner style, smaller box based in the Southeast. And Perkins has a pretty large presence in the Midwest and in Florida, but it's in probably 26 different states across the country. And
I don't know if you know that you know that I started my career in Bob's Big Boy, right?
I didn't know that. I did not know
and
that.
I do know how to make eggs, and I know how to make pancakes, and I know how to do it at 3 a.m. after the bars close.
Well, that's those late night hours aren't what they used to be after the pandemic for ourselves and a lot of the breakfast concepts. But we may have to tap you to help in some busy holidays.
I'm happy to do a shift if you'll have me. So my guess, though, is, well, first of all, the one thing I would note, and I actually didn't realize this, you joined Morton's when it was only 1 unit?
I did.
Okay. So I learned something new. After all the time I knew you, I never knew you were like employee first unit kind of thing. So you have been in a whole slew of entrepreneurial organizations. And you've also been in, yeah?
No, please, go ahead.
No, just sort of thinking this thing out. And also, if you take a look at the organizations you've been with, not only were they entrepreneurial, which which have their challenges and opportunities and good things and bad. But secondly, you've been with a company that went public. You've been in the very top of the fine dining piece. I mean, Morton's name out there, and just just really the leader there. But also, you've worked with a number of other different types of concepts. How is all that experience? Is there a favorite type of style of service? I don't want to say favorite company in there because, of course, we know what it is. It's the current one. But how's that been different for you in your life experiences?
What I realized, someone mentioned this to me during a meeting one time. I've worked with a lot of founders. I worked with Arnie Morton. I worked with Anthony Bruno. I've worked with for a small stint a fellow named Craig Bernstein. So that's actually a blessing in my mind. I love these founders and their creativity, their confidence, their ability to take risks. And what I was saying to someone recently was, founders take risks, but they still have their own internal risk management measurements. They're not cowboys or just carefree. They know how to take risks, and typically the first restaurant or two that these founders opened were smaller boxes, less rent, etc. But I really respect it, and you don't lose. And even with Morton's, as the founder left and died and sold out, we were blessed to have leadership and ownership that cared about the integrity of it. And we were able to keep all, the core of the brand together. So I would say that, and after more than 35 years, I'm now in the franchise business, which I hadn't been before. But when you ask me the question, my takeaway is really working with founders, and then obviously coming up for all those years, I've really experienced all aspects of a restaurant, from front to back, recipe modules, sales audits, fraud, you name it, we've seen it.
Yeah, but those are the so you had to bring the downers in there, right? Those are
Sorry.
the things that the finance guy is going to bring up. But I was waiting for you in talking about the founders with the but. I was like waiting, but that also creates its challenges. If you're a straight financial person supposed to hold the ship together, and they're doing all these different things out there, there's the other side where there are challenges in that as well.
You have to give, excuse me, you have to give the founders enough rope and to let them run a little bit. Like, if you think about a thoroughbred horse, and the ones I've worked with have had their own self-discipline, if that makes sense. They've, and again, it wasn't the go-go years. They've both Arnie Morton and Anthony Bruno were very measured in their growth. It wasn't it wasn't a hockey stick. It was developed over many years, and so you've got this, and they had very little debt, which today there may be more appetite for taking on debt or selling, selling early stage, and bringing in institutional capital. Back then, what we saw was probably mostly friends and
Self-funded.
family. Yep,
Yeah,
self-funded.
well, friends and family, of course, when you're done. So, look, we met over technology and things and we've stayed friends on technology, but certainly more than that, because steak is like my favorite thing. So that works for me. You need to be back at that. Well, we probably have good steak and eggs in there somewhere. But anyway, so where have you seen, the technological change or the technology, and obviously working in a franchisor environment that creates other things too, right? So how, from your perspective, it was technology just a necessary tool in there, for what you're doing and how you deliver, or, what is your view of where technology sits, by the way, as you started out and into where you are today?
Yeah, historically, it's been, historically it's been in financial reporting, right? For me, what was important to me. We always had to have good internal controls. The point of sales, is really kind of the anchor for a restaurant chain, and really the source of almost everything nowadays. Maybe not your purchasing and your COGS, but I think what's happened today is really the automation and the ability, just as even a consumer, and we're looking at rolling out new technology with pay at the tables, and the other thing that I've seen is really the amount of data that's available, and these analysts. We didn't have FP&A a category, when I started, and for most of my career. Now we've got these very, very bright analysts and systems that can slice and dice the data,
Are you
and
talking about within your company?
within our company, and also out there, and just looking at these tools. We're implementing um, a Power BI type tool and a dashboarding type system, and it's out there readily available also with the POS
Right.
companies.
But if we had your ops people in the room with you right now, I suppose the answer that they would give is, the customer service, ease on their employees, the front of the house, streamlining things. Maybe if you had the kitchen people in there, they'd be talking about production scheduling. Scheduling is a big thing. But they would expect the answer that you gave, as far as the financial piece. However, you've brought up the subject of data, and there's an awful lot of data available today. I mean, is it too much for you? Or are you sitting there saying, oh my God, it finally happened. I got all the data I need, and I could never get that before.
It's we're just, I think, scratching the surface today about what we can do, and the good news is we've had a lot of management changes at the top, and we're bringing in very, very experienced people that worked with larger companies, big pizza chains, etc. And what we're seeing is really, and the difference between most of my career to today is the introduction of value offerings and limited time offers, and studying the impact of one limited time offer. What were we doing this time last year? What did it cannibalize? Where's the margins?
Yeah, by the way,
Um,
if we go back 10, 15 years ago in the family segment that you're in, those are probably words that were not being used.
I imagine that. But today it's important, and you see what's going on in the industry with value, and you want to make sure you get your fair share of the market, and you don't lose those visits, right? So, I think there's more and more data out there, and really just being able to get it timely, to be able to normalize it and analyze it, is really everything.
Is it a challenge in two 65-year-old brands to make change?
That hasn't been too difficult, and I think that our company leadership and our franchisee partners are willing, and they realize that we have to stay relevant, and they see what's going on out there. Listen, when these brands were started, even fast casual didn't even exist, right? The
Exactly.
concept of some of these brands didn't even exist, let alone the more um, the different type of breakfast concepts out there that are more kind of boozy brunch, and maybe only open until 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So there's a lot more competition out there, even grocery stores, right? What grocery stores are offering.
Does that create opportunity for you, though, to expand into different types of locations or to partner with people with the brand? Or maybe,
I think the biggest expansion, these two brands, are 530 restaurants, are almost exclusively um, in freestanding buildings with parking lots, and Huddle House might be 2 to 3,000 square feet. Perkins might be 5,000 square feet. The opportunities it's presented to us is really to right size. So we've developed something called Griddle and Go for Perkins, which is going to be our first fast casual concept without servers. Kind of order at the counter, dine at the table. We opened our first one in St. Isidore, Canada. We'll be opening another one in Texas very soon, early next year. And for both Huddle House and Perkins, we're going to be opening our first Perkins in an inline space, in an end cap. So I think what we've learned here recently, and probably a while ago, but is that you don't need a $5 million, $3 million building that you build from the ground up.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people have certainly learned that. Let's just take a break for a moment, and then we'll continue on our conversation with Ron DiNella, who is the Chief Financial Officer at Ascent Hospitality Management.
With the rapid expansion of technology in the food and beverage industries, finding the right supplier can become overwhelming and complicated. To simplify this process, the IFBTA created Exchange. Exchange is a powerful search tool where users can easily narrow down their technology search and refine results by application type, geography served, department, and more. Browse resources and learn more about the industry's technology suppliers at exchange.ifbta.org. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Tech Bites, and I have my conversation guest and a longtime friend, Ron DiNella, the Chief Financial Officer of Ascent Hospitality Management. And we were just having a conversation about the 65-year-old brands, but also, how I think the word relevant came up there. But the thing that comes to mind for me, and you also did mention that certain categories in our industry didn't exist, a long time ago, like fast casual and things like that. But, when I think of your brands, Huddle House, and I think of Perkins, and I think of the family style, I also think of generational here, and when you use the word family and you're bringing in little kids and you got grandparents in there and stuff, how does technology play into that? How do you actually connect with those guests?
Yeah, I think we, and again, they're both full service restaurants. So you've got servers going to the tables, and when I dine in these restaurants and I talk to our operators, we have so many regular guests, right? Folks that come in, maybe they're coming in after church on Sunday, maybe they're just meeting their friends, once a week or once a month, or maybe it's a local group. But we've been fortunate to have loyal guests over the years. But we also realize that we need to stay relevant, which we just mentioned in the prior, before the break, and I think we do that through our marketing, right? So we have television commercials, and I mentioned earlier, we've got lots of new leadership in both Huddle House and Perkins, both on the marketing side and on the operational leadership side. And there's so many great fresh ideas. I mentioned earlier, we're going to be opening in Orlando our first inline restaurant for Perkins, but it's a completely new look. We engaged a designer to completely revamp the look and feel of the brand, new logos. We're going to be rolling out a complete new menu. And I mentioned Griddle and Go, which we've had a lot of interest in. We'll have this year our highest franchise sales, new deals in the history of both brands.
So Griddle and Go is something that you would order and you would take out.
But there's also seating there, just not servers. So you could dine in, but it's fast casual.
So you're ordering when you come in, or you could order online, and you're doing delivery as well, right?
Yes, yeah, we're doing a great deal of delivery. We're really doubling down on our third party delivery. We're partnering with both DoorDash and Uber Eats, and also the other thing we've advented this year is catering, Easy Cater, and that's really driving a great deal of business. It has during this holiday season, and it's in all of our Perkins restaurant now.
Are you tracking each of these as their own revenue center or day part?
Yes, we are. not day
I
part,
mean,
but
because
revenue center.
well, but they are so well. I use it's funny. So revenue centers probably is more commonly used term maybe in the hotel industry where they have them, but day part, which to me is almost it could be almost the same thing if you look at it, where you're separating out the drive through, your catering, your pickup and delivery. I don't know that restaurateurs have realized how many new opportunities to grow there are without growing their footprint.
Yeah, and in fact, we don't need to grow our footprint. Most of this is off premise. A lot of the initiatives that we're undertaking. So, and it's a different guest. It might, catering is typically B2B. Um, you're sending into someone's office. These large retailers, they bring in food for their teams during the holiday season, so that they can all keep working. And so we do. The catering is mostly B2B, and I think when I think about the third party delivery, I think it's a different guest. I don't think it's cannibalizing.
So where do you think sort of back on the technology thinking? I did say at the very top of this that in the industry today, traditionally the technology people have reported to the CFO. Now they're sometimes peers, out there. Where do you see if you're giving advice to people in tech, how are you viewing the world as far as evaluating investment and ROI in tech? That would be one half the question. And since you're now in a franchisee environment, how are they evaluating the investment?
Yeah, I think that there is a battle for capital, right? We want to allocate capital. There's a limited amount. It's not unlimited, and you're competing with all the other initiatives. Remodels, new store openings. Maybe it's a payroll system. Maybe it's a new menu rollout. Maybe it's you need a new point of sale. And by the way, some of this technology, the systems that we have, the POS systems in our restaurants, are getting to they're almost at a sunset period where we would have to react. So I think that
People, by the way, don't always think about that. They don't think they know that they have to do remodels every 5 to 7 years if you're a franchisee. But the idea of sunset, of course, cloud technology means the application isn't sunsetting, but maybe the technology that's being used, maybe, right? And the infrastructure around it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still, while it's in the cloud, you still need devices in the restaurant, right? If it's a kiosk or if it's a handheld or if it's a traditional terminal, you still need it. You still need printers or guest check printers or, kitchen displays, if you will. So those things you have to be, relevant with. And the second part of your question,
Well, the
franchisees.
franchisees, how are they, looking at that investment, because they understand remodels, they understand buying grills, but sometimes technology was a hard sell, to get them on the standard, or even more so, maybe data security and network management was a hard sell.
Yeah, I think the good news is I think because of these cloud-based systems, because of the advent of technology, it's not as heavy a lift as it was, it was even a decade ago from a cost standpoint. The solutions are definitely more efficient. You don't have these big servers in the restaurants anymore, and so the investment is a little bit easier to digest. And also, I think the cloud-based solutions do give them information right on their phones, and some of these franchise owners, are not in the restaurants, or they have multiple units, or they have other
Right.
businesses,
Multiple
so they're able
brands.
to, yeah, other brands, of course, yeah, and they're able to see what's happening in their restaurant via the tablet or
And then you layer on it the AI or the analytics. I was trying to avoid the term AI, but the analytics of
yeah.
giving them warning and notification of things that they need to do management wise. You know, they really do. It does make it better if as the franchisor, you have those technologies available as well. With your financial hat on, because I never get to ask this question of anybody, but it occurs to me that you may have a thought on it. The market is changing with POS, and a lot of the fintech companies have been buying the POS companies, quite a few of them, and we've got Square, and we got Shift4, and we got, all of the Heartland, they're buying up the POS companies, and how you sell or purchase the systems today are different from back office to point of sale to any of them. So that means the model of how you calculate the investment and the cost of ownership has changed. It also has changed from being something that you may pay for as a capital expense, upfront, to an operating expense. What is your view on how people are purchasing and buying systems and how they're being offered today?
I think the model today is definitely going to, service, ongoing revenues for these folks, software as a service. Even if you do outright purchase some of the hardware, a good portion of the total cost of ownership remains as an operating expense. And listen, those operating expenses are there even with the legacy systems. If it could be in the form of maintenance, it could be in some other forms. I think the other thing that we've seen probably again for the last decade is really these POS companies either kind of selling data to some extent, a little bit, homogenized and
Mm-hmm.
secure, but also getting into the credit card business and wanting to have your credit card processing. I think there's
Well,
a
that may or may not be good. It depends how big the brand is, because if the brand is really big, or you have multiple brands, you may have some freedom out there to do better than what
right.
is available in there. But on the other hand, it may lower the cost of it. But I think that there are different operating models and how you price it. I have heard some people in the franchisor community, or franchisees, either way, talk about that as they keep layering on applications. The first question I ask them is, how are you selling it? And if you get that, well, we charge X per cost per month, or whatever it is in hotels, X per room. Well, those little costs per month add up. But I think what I heard you say is, however, the general cost of systems from where they were before and the maintenance of them maybe has come down. Maybe it's a wash.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a trade out. So I definitely the one time costs have come down. Call it. I'm going to make up 30,000 to 10,000. For one restaurant for a
Right.
POS system. And while there are new continuing operating costs, they weren't zero before. There were maintenance costs and support costs and software costs and licensing ongoing fees. And then as far as the back offices, I think you still have the best of breeds, and you want to. You mentioned something about layering on systems, and I think we have to do a better job. And, we kind of pulled this apart when we were looking at our payroll systems and our onboarding systems last year, where all of a sudden you realize that you have this application to do onboarding, and you have this application to do WOTC, and you have this application, but really three or four of them are doing the same thing, and there's incredible overlap. And I think
Absolutely.
and I'm sure on the accounting side we have that, and I'm sure on the POS side we have that, and everyone
Well,
says that.
that's why
Go ahead.
that's why when you look at some of these systems, I don't want to say all in one, because all in one may imply that it's all in one, whether it's digital signage and KDS and POS and back office. I don't really mean that, but when people have bundled applications, even in something like POS or back office, right? It makes it tough because you're paying for it. You may not use it all. So that's why it ends up in 3 or 4 applications. If the chef, corporate chef buys something and then you get something else from your broadline distributors, you'll get that duplication. So if you're able to unbundle and buy the modules you need and put them together, then you can start to, without getting rid of systems that you may need, you're not having duplication and not using things.
Yes, and you're exactly right. Where a chef may need food cost modeling, a food cost modeling tool, but it may not exactly be what they have in your current back office. Because we literally were just talking
Right.
about this week, where hey, we want to model this, we don't have that tool, or the output from the back office or the inventory system isn't exactly what you were looking for, what they're looking for. So and it's difficult. It's difficult, especially when folks come from different organizations, different tools they had.
I find, by the way, I find the wording that you just used very interesting to me, because when I've talked to people about systems and why I always, when I talk to people about their systems, I'll say one of the main objectives here is, are you using spreadsheets? We need to get rid of the spreadsheets, right? And they'll smile and I'll say, now let me guess why you're using spreadsheets, because they'll tell me what systems they have. And I'll say, well, I bet it's because that system did not provide you the data in exactly the form that you want to use it. And what I've learned from that, and usually that is the answer, and I'll say, and you selected systems specifically because they could put it out in the form you needed. And what I've found is, in today's world, most of the data exists. It just may not look exactly the way, but if you're willing to see it in a different format, or see how it might exist in a different format because it has to integrate with other systems, that it really is out there and you can reduce the duplication. But the second that somebody says customized systems to me or customized applications, I'll sit there and say, well, what do you need them for? And it's usually for that particular reason.
Yeah, and listen, I think all of these current systems out there have export capabilities, and they all integrate with one another. So you should be able to get where you need to go. But again, it takes integration. It takes and someone willing to roll their sleeves up and get into it. And sometimes people just, don't have the attention span.
Well, hopefully over time, the integration issues will go away too. It's very infrequent today that you get a new app for your phone that you really have to integrate.
That's
And yet
correct.
there's tons of apps, right? So hopefully that's where we're headed in there. So as we look forward, since we're at the end of 2024 and we're looking forward to 2025, what's going to be top of mind for you in technology? By the way, I open this up. Does not have to be business technology, but what's your technology top of mind, or your list for next year that you're looking forward to? Either it's out there, or maybe you're looking forward to it showing up.
Yeah, I think from a personal standpoint, the volume of inbounds and just communications that we're getting, from a personal standpoint, I'm going to need to figure out how to keep that all relevant and reasonable.
Because there's too much.
It's just too much. It's hundreds of emails a day, and it's dozens of reports, but you don't want to not read something because it could be really important or someone else may have missed it. So I think on a personal standpoint, figuring out a way um, to get that reasonable. And on a professional standpoint with our brand, I'm really excited about what's going on. We've got so many franchises we've sold, and I want to see how this new Perkins lays out. We're talking about a new look for Huddle House as well, and we're always looking at other brands to acquire as well. So I think that from an Ascent hospitality management standpoint, and you want to be efficient. You want your people to work well. You want the technology and the systems to work well. And listen, we're fighting the battle every day, and I see my people are, well, I have to do this because I don't have that. I'm like, well, let's figure out how we get that tool solved so you don't have to do those workarounds, because it's still out there.
But the good news is you're not going to go cheap on them.
I won't go
You
cheap.
realize the value of data, you realize the value that's out there, and you value your technology team and what technology is doing for the company.
I do.
You do. So with that, Ron, it's been a pleasure. I know I will see you in the new year, hopefully sooner rather than later. out there. And again, thank you for joining us on Tech Bites.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
No, look, I always look to have the conversation. I'll look to have the next one with you as well. And didn't even bring up ice hockey in this whole thing. But anyway, that's another conversation. So thank you for joining us, Ron DiNella, the Chief Financial Officer of Ascent Hospitality. And have a great day. Thank you, Ron.
You too. Thanks, Rob.
This podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of food service, hospitality, and retail technology, providing thought leadership as your single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange, an all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share in conversations like the one we're having today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Tech Bites, powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.